Welcome to the Frictionless Innkeeper podcast. Coming right up, fresh tips and insights from lodging professionals aimed at helping you improve your business. Our podcast is brought to you by the Frictionless Guest App, the digital concierge that helps your guests to live like locals. Learn how at frictionlessguest.com. Steve Short, how are you?
Doing well, Matt. What's going on with you?
Well, it is February, and I know it's freezing cold all over the East Coast of the United States, but the timing is actually pretty good for this because usually we are not this timely with our podcast. We usually have a longer lead time, but we're actually speaking with Kenny Ridgell, who's the founder of Ridge Media, and he's talking about his upcoming ALP Unlocked 2026 presentation. And the reason why I say it's timely is because we're recording this and we're going to have this produced and done in about 2 weeks in advance of the show. So this is kind of like a teaser of what he's going to be talking about. And really, it's kind of a whole new world of AI and generative engine optimization for innkeepers.
Yeah, everybody keeps hearing about AI, and some people are really attuned to it. Others just have a little bit of a concept of it, maybe are concerned, afraid about it, whatever. I think from a lodging perspective, the whole GEO, as it's called, is hugely important, and it's here now. I mean, it's happening now, as Kenny talks about. So having somebody with his knowledge talk through this and talk about what you need to know and what you need to do, more importantly, about it, I learned a lot just listening to him and relating that to my businesses. And so I think people get a lot out of it, and it's an important topic. And I think hopefully they'll go to ALP Unlocked in another month or so and check out his presentation, which he's giving at ALP, and they'll get a more in-depth discussion about it. He hits on some really good points that are worth looking into, whether you go to his presentation or not.
Yeah, and the title of his presentation is pretty cool. It's titled The Zero-Click Era, How AI is Rewriting Travel Discovery and What to Do About It. His presentation is taking place on March 5th at 9 a.m. And he also teased out that he usually does some sort of signature cocktail at his presentation, and this one's at 9 a.m., so it could be an interesting cocktail.
That's right. That's right. And Kenny seems like a pretty fun-loving guy, so it doesn't surprise me.
Totally. Great guide, and really enjoyed talking with him. And I hope you enjoyed this Frictionless Innkeeper podcast interview with Kenny Ridgell, who is the founder of Ridge Media. All right, Kenny, thanks for joining us. And Steve Short, thanks for joining. And how are you guys doing?
Doing great. Happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Steve, how are you?
I'm doing all right, Matt. How's life in Spain?
Spain is good. It's cold and rainy right now, but not as cold as the East Coast of the United States. And Chetty probably didn't even realize that I'm based in Spain. So it is 8 o'clock. It's 8 p.m. right now, or it's 2 p.m. on the East Coast. So the beauty of Zoom and the internet, you can work anywhere, as you know.
Absolutely. I'm jealous of Spain right now. Yeah, we got snow on the ground.
Yes, for South Carolina, right? It's nuts. It's been a crazy January, and it looks like it's not really ending, especially when it comes to the cold. But let's go ahead and kick it off. So before we really talk about your upcoming ALP presentation, which sounds really awesome, and again, I think we were talking before we hit the record button, we've never really covered off on this topic, really, about AI and travel discovery and how innkeepers can really leverage this. But before we dive into that, tell us a bit about yourself and tell us about Ridge Media.
Yeah, so I went to college in Charleston, which is like a very, hospitality-driven area. And my whole concept was I did not have enough funds to afford to do what I wanted to do in Charleston. So I had to shop for like happy hours, food specials, concerts like that. So long story short, I was in pre-med trying to be a dentist. My dad's a dentist. And he was like, you need to go take an entrepreneurship course. So whenever you take over the practice, you know how to like basically run a small business. I went in there. You had to come up with a concept or like, a fake Shark Tank, if you want to call it that, make a little pitch deck and start pitching company ideas. I tag teamed with a couple of different people in my class. We came up with an app idea that told you happy hours, like food specials, concerts, everything that you would care about as a college student because you couldn't afford to really live in Charleston the way that the adults live in Charleston at the time. Not that you're in college, you're an adult, that's questionable, right? But the idea being that we built this app out and we started trying to sell ads on it. I think we had somewhere around like 30 to 40,000 people looking at it a month. We ended up getting like the minor league baseball team, the hospital. It was like one of the first ways to schedule your appointment online with the hospital. And we were trying to sell ads through and like grow this app. But really what I found was, I'm on foot, walking up and down King Street, walking around Charleston, just walking into businesses, majority of them being like small bread and breakfast hotels and different like hospitality-based ventures. They have no money to waste. They were not interested in buying on my app. It was like 2013, 2014, and we had good social media, and they saw me as a young guy. So I was like, hey, can you help me do my social media? Can you help me look at my Google? Do you know anything about Google? So I would say at the beginning, I didn't even see the marketing agency as like the end all be all. I saw this app. So I was really using this marketing platform to fund my app idea. I basically came to the end of my college career, had a pretty decent amount of revenue, but I was not making any profit. So I remember I sat down with my professor and I'm like, look, in order for me to convince my dad I'm not going to dental school, telling him I lost 10 grand is not going to do it. I'm going to have to sit down and make some level of like better pitch here. And he split my books up. And he's like, let's take the app. You lost a boatload of money on the app. Let's take your marketing agency. You actually did pretty good on the marketing agency. Like that was where all your profit. Basically, it kept your app afloat. And I remember I looked at him dead in the face and I said, what is a marketing agency? And he's like, it's what you're doing right here where you're buying Google ads and you're making videos and branding. And at that point in time, I would say we were more of like a true one-stop shop. Like you wanted business cards, you wanted your like apparel, shirts, hats. We were saying yes to all of it. Long story short, was not good at. Like I'll give you one laughable story. I did like a CFC, ordered a really big thing for like an entrepreneur day. It was like 1,000 shirts. And we, naturally scrambled, university plus college student, last second, order these shirts, get them in like the day of the event. I pulled the first shirt out there, the pocket. The print was not on the pocket. The print was in the middle of the t-shirt, not on the pocket. So that's a good example of like, I realized quickly we were not printing people. The ad campaign on the internet for the shirts looked great. The t-shirts came out pretty poor.
That's an awesome story. First off, the fact that the app sounds similar in concept, but geared toward college students as, what we do with the Frictionless Guest App, number one. Number two, the fact that you were so entrepreneurial back in college to try, to get that going, not just come up with an idea. I remember MBA classes where we had to come up with ideas, but we never implemented them, But also, what's the dental school aspect of this? Like, did you think you were going to go or you just never wanted to, but your dad thought you were, or what?
I would say that I like the idea of the money from the dental school. I didn't necessarily want to be a dentist, if that makes sense. I was like, All
right, I get it.
I like that he did work Fridays and that he made pretty good money. And I'm like, this seems like a great career path. I think I'm interested. I was pre-med all the way through college, basically doing biochemistry as my major, which is very odd because I run a digital marketing firm. If we take a digital a biochemistry approach to our analytics and apply a scientific methodology to our marketing. But, we don't have to hit that nerdy. At the end of the day, it is numbers and it is like experiments. And you're setting up and testing different variables. So there is stuff like carryover.
Yeah.
But to me, you have to get hours is how it works in dental school. You have to get 100 hours of volunteer work. I'd spend my 100 hours during my Christmas break in my senior year in my dad's office and a couple of his friends' offices. And I basically came to the end of that semester with one Christmas season, one semester left. I'm like, I can't be a dentist. There's no way. You have the same conversation with every person in the chair. It's like, hey, Matt, how's your wife? How's your kids? Like, how's church? How's everything? Oh, Steve, how are you doing? And he's like, just cheat sheet. Like, Steve's son's name is this. So he's just reading off his sheet. And I'm like, that. These so many patients a day. It's hard to keep you don't want to say their child's name wrong. And he's like, I know Steve and his kid, but like, okay. To me, I'm like, I'm way too energetic. I can't sit still in a chair like this. I'm going to find a way to make this app thing work. I get back to school with a renewed passion for making this app not just be a hobby, but being a bill-paying situation.
So have you been Ridge Media since like 2016 or so? Or talk about what you do now with, what your core business is now, what it evolved to as well.
Yeah, exactly. That's perfect. It kind of parlays back to the Charleston situation. Basically, we ended up keeping the app, but I used it as like a loss leader. And I was kind of just walking these businesses, hoping to get their marketing play. So I started the company. I graduated in 2014 at Christmas. I take an extra semester. I add entrepreneurship as a minor. And I basically try and do some business classes like accounting 101, stuff like that. I get out. I started the business February 4th, which is tomorrow, actually, 11 years ago. So
congrats. Nice.
Company right out of school. And at that point, my whole concept would be like, everyone in Charleston is extremely, extremely tight on cash. It's extremely competitive. You have to be agile in your marketing and you better figure out how to show your marketing made them money or else they're not going to keep you along very long. So I really had to pivot into being like more of like a sales and marketing revenue consultant just to try and keep customers. So through that, I really learned how can I leverage different tools to make things more efficient, to not like increase cost. And then through that all, like through the trial and experimentation of what worked and didn't, we found out, okay, we're really good at working with hospitality-based businesses, making their websites, run their digital ads. Anything that's on the internet has been like a big presence for us because you can track all of it. So I could basically like actually keep customers because I could come back to you and say, Steve, with your property, we ran these different ads. You got this much revenue back in. Matt, the idea was basically tying said spend back to ROI. And that was the one way I found that you could keep a customer if you could show where their money came back to them. Slickest social media campaign and make it look all glossy and incredible. But like if you can't tie it to results, there's a shelf life to you. And especially in a market like Charleston, where you can walk down the street and there's so many competitors to each other. They're all trying to do the same thing. They need some type of competitive edge or angle. And I found that at the time we were basically blessed, God's providence. It was definitely like digital marketing was exploding at the time period in terms of opportunity. And there was still not a lot of people competing on the space. So we really leaned into it. And I think my age helped. I'm a young guy. I'm 23. I started an app. Everyone's like, oh, you could definitely do my social media. But the main thing was like, that got you started. You just had to figure out a way to keep the guy or the woman. And what the idea was like, I had to just figure out what is the way we can make these people make money. And the proof is in the pudding on the internet is one of the only hardest parts about the world, right? Is you run an only digital ad campaign. They know whether it worked or not. You both know whether it worked or not. So
do you focus mostly on lodging and websites for properties? And, I know you're going to get into AI and
GS, but so you focus on revenue generation still. That's kind of like been our big niche. And the same methodology is kind of applied as the business evolved. I would say, more and more people I would find in Charleston in particular, you have a lot of entrepreneurs that own other businesses, right? So they might have a downtown hotel, but the guy might be a dermatologist or like his wife owns a retail store. And so what I basically found was like through this pool of entrepreneurs, they would all be like, hey, can you try with my plumbing and heating and air business? Can you try with this business? And then we started saying yes, naturally. And we found out that our niche is like the 3 H's, like so hospitality, healthcare, and home services. The easiest way to think of it is like niche is the customer that has almost disposable income, right? Because the same guy who's a family or couple that's going to stay in this like $400 or $500 a night hotel in Charleston is also going to be trying to look at like getting his plumbing and heating done. His wife might go to the plastic surgeon. He might go to the dermatologist. The children might go to the orthodontist. So it's like more or less, what are these disposable income type of individuals? Where do they spend their money and how do we target them? Because if we can figure out how to get them to book at our hotel, we could probably figure out how to talk to them about everything else. And at the end of the day, most customers, like our customers of businesses, want to find this like high net worth individual that has disposable income. So really, the nerdy way in me says like we market to the disposable income luxury class, regardless of your product or service.
So I'm a property, not that you have to pitch me, but tell me, what would you do for me if I were to hire you or consider hiring you? What is it? And I know we want to get more into your presentation, so maybe we should do that. Cliff Notes version of the type of services you provide so we can get a feel for your expertise in, what you're going to talk about.
Well, I would say the main thing we do is like a holistic approach. We don't have any packages. There's no package A, B, or C, good, better, best. We basically come in and we kind of sit down and we say, okay, Steve has worked with your property, where are your customers coming from? And at the end of the day, we kind of audit you because a lot of times customers think, my favorite running joke is we have a car dealership and the guy says like 25-year-old girls are who our customers are. Come to find out like 5% of his customers are the 25-year-old girls. That's who we wanted to be his customer. So right. You can't always take the owner at their word. We have access to like your booking software. We want to look at where the traffic's coming from. Like what states are they coming from? What are their ages? What are their commonalities? Like we basically do a full audit of your business. Look at it from, what kind of monetary value do you have? What kind of room do we have to grow and your market share opportunity to grow? And then we try and basically come up with an experiment of like, okay, let's take 3 or 4 buckets for simplistic terms. Let's spend the similar amount of money in those 3 or 4 different channels and let's do a 90-day test and get an answer. So a lot of it's really just trying to understand what's in place, what is working, what do we need to fix right away? And then that kind of parlays right into like the AI piece of it, because in the best way possible, I would say we want to leverage all the tools we can that have low overhead cost so that you can invest your money back into ads. Because back to the idea of keeping customers, if we can basically you're paying, say, $2,000 a month, $3,000 a month on SEO and social media management, if we could find a way to repivot at like labor cost, in my mind, there's a labor cost, right? You're paying a developer to do your SEO, somebody to do your social media management. If you could find a way to reinvest even half of that into ads and then save half of it for like programs of software that can create automations, You basically just freed up like $1,500 or $18,000 a year to start marketing your property, which is going to make you money. Back to the idea of keeping customers for a long time. I'm basically coming in, auditing their tech stack, looking at everything they're spending money on, trying to find a way to like basically carve out my own budget. So if we use the example, Steve, you're like, Kenny, I'm spending like $2,000 a month right now on my PR and $1,000 a month on my SEO. I'm like, okay, well, let's figure out if we could just basically get ourselves $2,000 to spend on ads, because you're not spending any really ad dollars, and we're not going to really know exactly what we're getting back until we start running advertisement. So we're really looking at like, how do we save you money and create our own budget? Because at the end of the day, if I come to you and I'm like, I need an additional $3,000, you're like, Kenny, I have 13 rooms or 8 rooms. I don't have an extra $3,000. This is our marketing budget. What can you do with it? So our whole idea is like, how do we basically replace some of the services with automations? How do we basically keep the same thing going? You need SEO, you need these different tools, but maybe your booking engine has some of these pieces in place. So maybe your CMS on your website has some of these pieces in place. Can we leverage the developer you've already worked with to do some of these pieces? Just understanding everything that's at play in the situation, and then making budget allocations to shift to just invest in like basic growth of revenue.
Let's talk about GEO, what it is, because that's the whole AI connection here, similar to SEO. And let's talk about that. And then I want to understand a little bit more about, it sounds like it's one aspect that you would leverage or need to be involved in the content and all of that to make sure that if somebody else is doing that, if Ridge Media is not the one doing it, that you've got the strategy to say, okay, here's what we need to do content wise or whatever to make sure that the GEO side of things, just like the SEO side, is working. Let's, I guess, start if you can tell us a little bit about GEO, what it stands for, and what it really comes down to from a kind of a simple website and ultimately booking perspective, I guess.
Yeah, I would say like that actually parlays right back into what I was saying. So one of the first things we find is most properties are spending a certain amount of money on SEO, on these different pieces. One of the first things we started into looking at, as it evolves, it changes. But one of the first things we start looking at is, okay, if you're running Google ads and you're running SEO, are you spending anything on branded search? Like take a property, let's call it, I have a property called Hotel Domestique we work with. Let's say they might be buying Google ads, but they might be buying their own name. There's no reason to spend dollars trying to get a cost per click on your own name if people are already typing in your name in, and you're going to win it organically. So it's just like the right there alone, I think you could save significant savings right out of the gate, and trying to like reallocate that back to some of your geo. But geo is more or less like these learning language models. Think about when you go to Google now, you type in at the top, say I want like best hotels in Charleston, South Carolina. Boom, you're going to pop up. You're going to get that like Gemini sponsored result. Then you're going to have your paid ads. Then you're going to have your map, and then you're going to have your SEO. So really like that top part is a lot of times they show you the sources, right? If you click on it, it'll have like a hyperlink, and it'll show you the sources of where they pulled that information from. So like those people are being considered, that's your authenticator, or that's like, they're pulling you as being like your credible source. What we want to do is basically have our properties show up in that search so that we win the real estate. You want to win the geo, you want to win the maps, you want to win the ads, and you want to win your like SEO. But the biggest part with the geo is a lot of times, I think they said on Black Friday, 70% of shopping started with Black Friday this year, started on like these learning language models, and then they made a purchase decision later. We're trying to buy a couch for a new home right now. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've searched on ChatGPT or Grok, what is the best washable couch? We have a 2-year-old. I'm trying to make sure we don't like stain this. But my wife wants a white couch. I'm like, okay, good. Well, we better make sure we make an investment into the right couch. But the other day, before I even go to like West Elm or Crate and Barrel, I'm going to here seeing like, what's the best washable couch? This is my budget. What can I find underneath it? And then now I'm starting to shop. Same like that's kind of happening with these like properties, right?
So, all right. So if I break down the world to the uninitiated, I mean, SEO, search engine optimization, which is people searching through search engine like Google, right? GEO, which is generative engine optimization, is that whole idea of basically AI apps, ChatGPT, whatever. So what you're saying is the world has shifted very quickly, very significantly, in that many people now are leveraging AI in order to pretty much hone in, come up with ideas, but also if they have, depending on their idea, whether you're buying a couch or in this case, I want to go somewhere, I want to stay somewhere, they might already be halfway down that path to figure out where, maybe they know where, like what town, but not there were still a lot of options of where to stay. So they start with that and they kind of chop down the list probably to maybe a handful of properties. And then at that point, they're going to make their decision possibly through Google or through a search engine ultimately to find the details. But you're saying, hey, you're not even going to be on the radar unless these AI engines, these apps can find you. And if somebody says, well, I'm looking in Charleston, I want to be downtown, I'd like to be at a smaller property, and hopefully they serve breakfast or something, right? Then you want to make sure that if they're not going to your website, they're not even Googling to see if Google shows them as a property. They're starting with Gemini or whatever. And so if you're not found there, you're being left behind the same way you were when you didn't consider SEO. Is that basically what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. That's why I've been calling it the 0-click era. And I think a lot of people have been reading online called the 0-click era. The idea being like people aren't going to Google and clicking anymore. They're going to these like chat bots, having a conversation. And at that point, now it goes back to the branded search. These people are going to find the 3 hotels they want. They're going to go check out their Instagram. They're going to go look at their website. They might look at the reviews on Google, and then they're going to buy. It's no longer driven by Google ad being the first prompt that like pushes them through. I think historically we would all do the same thing where we go like, Charleston, these are my dates, and I'm going to basically see what lodging options there are. Basically, Google like lodging. You can do your booking there. But it's becoming less and less common for people just to start in the booking window. They kind of have a general idea of which property they're going to start with. And so it's kind of like rewriting like how travel discovery happens. And I think part of it is what we were talking about before we hopped on is the way people are learning how to use the learning language models or how to use these chatbots. I give the example at the beginning of like best hotels Charleston. As people become more and more refined with what they're searching, they give a little bit more prompting and an explanation of who they are. Like when I type in now, my wife and I are foodies. We love like staying in a boutique property. We don't want to stay in a hotel that's like, a flag. We want to have like we want to have a certain amount of amenities, but we're not required to have a fitness gym or like have a pool. We might want like coffee. And then like you're basically able to type in kind of who you are, what you want. And then it's learning to prompt you and tell you where you want to stay. So in a good way, like, you got to kind of basically think through conversational style language is the least dirty way to say it. So like in terms of like blogs on your website, they call it schema, which is like the way it's marked up. There's like the bots will read it if it's in schema. All that to be said, it's not that intimidating. There's like programs you can literally just type in that are free. You can even go to ChatGPT right now and say, take this paragraph, give me schema to put on my website, send it to your web developer. Your web developer will be able to put on there with no problem. You'll be fine. The idea is that what is the conversation? What is the AI sentiment? So there's like these different programs you can see. What are people searching? How are they typing in? How's it changing? Because as people change, their prompts change. Like giving their age, for example, I'm a 55-year-old. I'm looking at this and I'm on a romantic getaway. Okay, we better have a blog on our website that says itinerary for 50-year-olds that are foodies and historical nerds like that are shopping. Or we want to go like, say, take New York. We want to go be able to like be within walking distance of Soho. We want to have a couple different dinner reservations. So you better pull up like, go ahead and write these itineraries, make it in a conversational language, and then put the questions in there. And in a good way, instead of you trying to prompt yourself to do this, a lot of times, as long as you're thinking around this way, a lot of these tools can save you money. So what we might say is back to your idea of Steve being the potential hospitality guy who owns a property, you're spending $2,000 a month on SEO. We're going to say, Steve, what we recommend is here's a little program you can pay $99 a month. It's going to go ahead and tell you, prompt you, hey, here's like the different searches that are happening this month around you. They like drove traffic. Here's where you showed up as the authority in the search. Here's new questions you didn't get in front of. Here's what you need to write your next blog on. The program will then write this freaking blog in the conversational style language based on what's happening. So you went from spending like $2 or $3 grand, or maybe sometimes people charge 500, 1,000, whatever it is for your SEO, to $99, and it's all automated. You're just praying, okay, I like that article, but you're like, the teenage like spring break trip, that doesn't fit our property. We don't want to write that article. So you're basically seeing what trends are happening and you're saying like, okay, give me content for that. Don't give me content for that. And it basically gives you like, talk about clicks. It gives you like 1 click to have a blog published on your website. And then the blog is basically already marked up all the schema. It's already ready to show up with these learning language models. AKA we just saved your money to try and reinvest back into other different alternatives. And it's just making sure that you're showing up for the way that people are finding properties now. Because this whole 0-click thing is changing the way that you're monitoring your ROI. Because think about it that way. Like if somebody knows they come down to 3 properties, they're already doing their research. At that point, they kind of made their buying decision. They're buying from one of those 3. How do you make sure now, like what's our website look like when they get on there? Do they come to this landing page that's about the 55-year-old? Do we have an itinerary written? Do we have any partnerships with local restaurants saying, here's a romantic getaway opportunity or idea that we can link onto our page? Because the restaurants are basically trying to do the same thing, vice versa. They're trying to figure out how to get into this new world of like, instead of people type of steakhouse, there's so many more descriptors to the steakhouse.
So in terms of the strategy for GEO or Geo, as you call it, it's interesting because it sounds to me like, I think of SEO as, you want language, what I would call your static information, your page, stuff on the page that's not changing. Typically, you're adjusting that to make sure you can be more easily found. You're dealing with structured data, metadata, whatever. That's what I think of initially with SEO. And then you've got your blog or your dynamic content where you're updating that. And for GEO, it sounds like it's basically the same thing. The interesting thing you're talking about is it sounds like, okay, it's what's driving it more is this dynamic information, this blog posting and all of that you're saying really needs to be the big focus. And then in addition to that, the interesting thing is AI is driving this stuff. And yet also you're saying use AI tools to help you put the content in there that AI is finding. It's like a circular logic or something.
It's like, let the AI talk to the AI, right?
And yeah. Right. So talk about that. Like, is that really what it comes down to is content? And I know from our clients that innkeepers are just massively I don't know if overwork's the right word, but they don't have time. And this is one of the biggest challenges with using our app or anybody that is marketing to lodging people, independent lodging people, especially. So, but at the same time, I feel like, well, content, you don't want to just rely on AI to write everything for you. It seems like, you're right. You pick and choose, but I don't know. Should there be?
Let's get into the meat of it. It's actually one of the things we talk about is like your website user experience is super important, right? Do you need 100 blogs facing on there that are confusing, that can get people lost? I think a lot of it is from the site navigation of your website. A lot of times we won't even link these blogs into there. It's like we realize how we're putting them on like Google Search Console, which is kind of getting nerdy, but long story short, you're basically telling Google they're there, but you're not making it be part of what you have to filter through as a user when you get to the website. To back up one step, it's almost changing from like keyword-based marketing to conversational-based marketing because of the way people are searching now. Because we used to all think, you got to rank for these keywords, you got to rank for these keywords. Now they're saying like, the keywords aren't really as relative as the question. If you look at those Gemini results, it's a much more thorough paragraph type situation. And to take it one step further, Google Ads is even changing now to where your traditional like static search ad would be like, here's your headline, here's your description, here's the keywords I want to be involved in. Now you can actually give it a thing called Performance Max. You can put in 15 different headlines. You can put in, I think it's 5 different long headlines, 15 different short headlines. You can put in like 12 different descriptions. And it's triggering based on what people are searching, a different headline. Google's realizing that people are typing way more like robust searches into their bar. So they're trying to give you an opportunity to like not just have, we are Charleston's #1 hotel. You've got to have this thorough, you got to have multiple options, multiple campaign ideas laid out. And in a good way, back to the AI, you basically tell, hey, here's my clientele, here's my 4 target audiences. I got like romantic couples, a getaway, foodie people. Okay, well, I want to make like a campaign for each. I want to have the headlines and the titles and the descriptions for each. And it'll basically kind of do the structuring for you, but in a good way, like basically everyone's kind of seeing the world change. So even Google is rolling out their tools. The analogy I give to everybody is like going back to New York. Whenever you go to New York, of course you have to have a pretty sign, and that's like your website, right? We always say your website is your storefront. Kind of going back to like the window dressing though, is like what we're talking about, geo or SEO. You always have these like Gucci and Louis and these huge stores are changing their entire window dressing every season, and it's something people look forward to. And you go down Saks Fifth Avenue and you're looking at all these different. Your website basically is kind of the same way. You have to do new window dressings to get your storefront updated. Your sign might not change. Your website might not change a ton in terms of like what you're talking about. It's not like we're trying to change the way the website flows every month. The idea is like we're just adding more and more like pizzazz to match whatever theme or trend of the season's happening. I think the physical storefront gives everybody a good concept mentally of what we're referencing here. But really to back up, it's just keyword to like conversation change, this shifting all of it.
So with what you just said with the analogy, the storefront, the window dressing and all that stuff, if I liken that to what I was talking about in terms of website content being static or dynamic, it sounds to me like you're saying that the store sign, the basic branding is that static information, whereas the window dressing is really the dynamic stuff, like the blog stuff that you're putting up there. Even if it's not even viewable through the website, the purpose of putting that content out there is to make sure that SEO, but GEO especially, it can find that information and say, okay, I understand basically what this property is offering and what they're about. So when somebody asks through my ChatGPT app or whatever, ChatGPT says, all right, they're looking for these things. And I know that this property offers them because their dynamic content that they've posted tells me that basically, right?
Basically like the two-step buy now, the zero click, right? So you got zero click errors being these people researching the specific thing to them. To play it all the way out back to your property, Steve, say like me and my wife are going somewhere, we're foodies, we come onto your website, we find the blog through ChatGPT about you being walking distance for some Michelin star restaurants. And then y'all have breakfast and coffee. Sweet. We don't need the amenities. Okay, Steve makes our short list. Matt has a property that's very similar. Okay, he's near some other good restaurants. Like New York's perfect market for this, right? I mean, all the hotels are near different Michelin star restaurants. I get my short list. I got 3 or 4 different like hotels I want to now pick out. I'm going to back up. I'm going to go type in like the different direct names. I'm going to find those 4 hotels. That website experience is still going to be a part of the buying decision, but it's shifting from what you're calling static to dynamic. So like the dynamic helped me put you on my short list of research. Static is what's going to help me like get over the hump and make be my decision. Because if I go find out, I'm looking at Matt's website and Steve's website, and Steve's got like really slick, clean pictures, and it looks very modern, and like you can see the rooms and you get all the details. And then Matt's is a little bit more like he hadn't updated his like website or his storefront in a long time. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe I'm going to go with Steve instead of Matt. But like y'all both made my short list. You both had this dynamic piece correct. But the website itself is still like that hook. You know, it's going to be what flips you and makes you buy at the end of the day. Because really, it's just people are just taking a lot of the legwork about a research out, distilling it down to a few options. And then they're making their decisions still the kind of traditional way of Instagram good. But we get into like Matt's area and we're like, oh man, we don't like it. Sorry to pick on you, Matt. I'm not trying to call you out.
That's all right. All good. All good.
No, I think it's a perfect analogy because Matt would have a crappy website and we'd have a great one. So
I knew that was coming. You teed it up, Kenny. That's awesome.
I love the
That's hilarious. Yeah.
Well, the interesting thing is that while the digital world's changing, fortunately, it seems like the lessons are like anything else. The principles are all the same over time here. It's all about trying to communicate who you are. First off, figuring out who you are and who your ideal client profile is, a guest profile, whatever. And then figuring out how to communicate that in an honest way so that the people who are looking for something like you offer understand it. And it's not bait and switch or anything like this. It's authenticity with your website, with what you offer, including those blog posts, whether they're generated through AI or not. Be careful because you want to make sure they're clear and they represent you. And then consistency of that messaging and consistency of the static stuff as well. Because if somebody does go to your website and they see that based upon, it's funny because I wouldn't call my wife and I foodies, but we like going to decent restaurants and that sort of thing. But most of what you talked about, you like, same thing with us. Want to stay at a B&B type, independent type place, whatever, not a large flag type place. And if I feed that into I've been using Grok the last couple of weeks, but I've tried all different ones, Gemini, Grok, ChatGPT. If I feed those in and come up with a couple properties and I go to Matt's website and it's like, hold on, I thought this is going to be a great experience. And then Matt's website, I see the dumpy rooms or what, I don't know. I'm just trying to come up with something here. But the point is that it's got to be real, but it also has to be consistent. So that's what we've been saying, or not we, that's what the people at ALP and have been saying for a long time. The experts have been saying for a long time. So this to me is kind of just a refinement, but the principles are the same. You just have to understand how to play the game and make sure that you're keeping up with it so people can find you, right?
Yeah, and I would say like one of the things that is exciting to me is it's back to like the old marketing adage of like telling people who you are right out of the gate. Sometimes that can be very difficult when you want to be something to everybody, particularly as a hotel, right? Like you don't know what's right on your homepage about which type of clientele you're trying to bring in. Do you recommend that we're like family? Do we say we're romantic? You're trying to convey these multiple messages to different crowds. So you end up trying to make more of like a broad stroke paintbrush picture of who you are with some like glossy tagline. It kind of lets us explain a little bit more of who we truly are and give a little bit more of our background and story. So I see it as like an opportunity, whereas a lot of people are like scared of this AI movement. They're like resisting it. It actually gives a great opportunity to like really tell who you truly want to be to the type of different person that you know is looking you up. The hardest part about marketing sometimes is being like, we have this great property in the middle of New York, but like people care about shopping and drinking and eating and history and museums and like which part do we reference and bring up to the front? How do we talk about it whenever everybody else is like some aesthetically great, pleasing hotel that has awesome amenities and service? How do you operate in that like competitive, like gray area and present it? And I mean, you've probably seen this too when you build websites. So many people don't want it, like they want to almost make it more confusing rather than like just going directly out and saying what you are. I hate to pick on one of my clients, but when we first started with him, they were on a really old mansion in Charleston that turned into a boutique Airbnb. I'll spare their name. But when we first met them, their website said like Charleston's oldest mansion. And then like it never even led you on the homepage to know that you could stay there. You could see a stay button. But then no point was it like, this is a hotel. And the first thing we said, we're like, hey, you need to just say Charleston's oldest mansion as a hotel, or hotel in Charleston in a Charleston historic mansion. So you got to put the word in there, hotel, or just put the word stay in Charleston's historic mansion. You've got to frame to people that like, you can stay here, because we call it owner's language. They want to tell their whole story so much that where they miss the boat of like, these people don't know who you are. They land on your website. You might think they assume they know that you're a hotel, but you better come right out and say in the first 5 words, we're a hotel, or I ended up on some weird mansion website. I don't know if I want to stay there.
Yeah, it's got to be geared. It's got to be geared to the audience, not what you think.
Yeah, the best part is it's becoming more and more affordable. And I did love what you said, making sure you read the article and put your own spin on it. I think sometimes the AI is like, once they give you the subject, they might even get you started, like get you off the writer's block, but you need to write your own, you need to write your own content or have someone help you. And you might be able to put it back in there and say, revise and edit this and make sure that it like still is grammatically correct. You think it is like a tool to help you, not to drive your entire thought process.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You're saving money. You're getting like the capabilities to do a lot more of the stuff that lets you be like more robust in your approach. And now you can like punch above your weight class, right? You're like that 8-bedroom boutique that's trying to fight with the Marriott down the street who has all the money in the world to spend on SEO and these blogs and these articles. If you can tell your real story and be like actually refined, you have a better chance to get up out of your weight class than you did before.
Yep, makes sense. So you're going to be going into more depth with this whole topic at ALP. And is it, I think, Thursday morning at 9 a.m.? Because it's Monday through Thursday, I believe. And I think it's the 2nd through the 5th. And this, I think, or is it Wednesday morning at 9 a.m.?
I think it might be Wednesday morning. But either way, I'll be doing a lot of room hosting as well. I'll be in there like trying to introduce everybody, going to dine around. I'll be present. Sarah would like me to announce this on here, but we tend to like to bring a little bit of a surprise cocktail to my speech as well. So if you come in there, we'll probably most likely have some type of surprise cocktail for everyone who comes and listens to the lecture. I have found that if it's 9 a.m., we'll probably be doing Bloody Marys. But I was going to say 9 a.m. Yeah, man. I think it loosens everybody up in the crowd, though. It gives a little bit of memory. They're like, you're the guy who brings a cocktail. So I'm like, you know what? We're just going to stick to that. That's my MO of these different hospitality shows. We're all like in there learning a lot. It's a long day. Typically a long night sometimes. It's good to have a little bit of refreshment in the room and just give that like branding and memory. I think everybody learns my story, right? So they're like, that's the guy who brings the booze to all this talks. I'm like, yeah, that's perfect. Here we go. I like that space.
It's your window dressing. It's maybe it's the storefront or whatever. I don't know. But I'm glad you mentioned the dine around thing. I've got to get signed up. When I went there, nobody had been signed up, and I have to figure out which one I want to go to. I definitely want to do the dine around thing. That's a cool idea. Matt, you want to lead us out of here or what?
Sure. Yeah, Kenny, this has been awesome. It's actually been a lot of fun too and very insightful for me. And I myself am actually in marketing. I'm more in B2B and business to government. So it's not as aggressive, if you will, in terms of the targeting. Like a lot of my clients know that a CIO at a government agency is their customer. But it can't hurt for them to really get the insights on what these people are searching for and then, tailoring our content accordingly. So really cool stuff. Yeah. Appreciate your insights. You're educating me, and I'm a lifelong content marketer, PR guy. So this has been really awesome. And with that, anything else to add, Kenny? Anything we didn't discuss? I know we don't want to give away too much because we want everybody to come to the presentation. And now that there's going to be Bloody Marys, I'm sure people are going to be lining up. But yeah, anything else to add?
I would say if you have any questions, look, I'm totally like a small business minded person. Everyone in my family is an entrepreneur, grandparents, uncles, aunts, everybody. So I always want to help. So definitely reach out. If you have any ideas, I'd be happy to hey, these are the tools we're using, programs we're using. I'm pretty much a transparent, open book. So I'd be happy to share advice, and I don't charge for consulting. Let's hop on a call, even if it's 15 minutes. I'd happy to tell you which programs we're using, which softwares we're using, kind of give you a little audit on what you're doing and just give you some ideas. So feel free to reach out.
How can we make sure people can get a hold of you? We'll put it in the podcast notes, but go ahead and tell everybody how best they can get a hold of you.
Yeah, you can either go to my website at ridgemediallc.com or find me on LinkedIn at Kenny Ridgell. Yeah, just feel free to reach out every way. Hopefully we monitor all of our lines and are responsive. At the end of the day, I welcome any ideas people have too. Like you feel like you have a tool that might be cool too. We're all learning. That's the best part about where we are in this world, is that things are hyper moving. I bet if we waited too long to post this, it would basically become irrelevant.
It's going out soon, man.
Exactly.
All right. Excellent.
Yeah, cool. I'll take us out. So this concludes this Frictionless Innkeeper podcast interview with Kenny Ridgell, who is the founder of Ridge Media. And Kenny was kind enough to share some insights about his upcoming ALP Unlocked 2026 presentation, which is titled The Zero-Click Era, How AI is Rewriting Travel Discovery and What to Do About It. And his presentation is taking place on March 5th at 9 a.m. And our podcast is brought to you by the Frictionless Guest App, the digital concierge that helps your guests to live like locals. Learn how at frictionlessguest.com. Once again, that's frictionlessguest.com. And Kenny and Steve, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Kenny. Yep, we appreciate it.